So, ladies, welcome. We just kind of ran right for it, but that's okay because I introduced you already. But my guest is reoccurring guest, second time here in the Revitalized Womanhood space, Michelle Smith, my sweet friend who has given her life right now to showing people what sober life can look like. Michelle, why just give us a reminder of what put you on this path?
Yeah. Like we were just chatting about with postpartum, that was a pivotal moment of where you took that same turn and, those fork in the road of debilitating anxiety and depression and life transition. And some people are aware of it like you were, right? And some people are until practitioner or provider gives us more insight and clarity into what we're feeling and how to navigate through it. And, that's what I fell into was the undiagnosed postpartum depression and bereavement and grief and loss and just a lot of life transition that led me to some really dark places with anxiety and depression as well. And we all have a choice. We have tools. We have access to certain things. And, I took a turn towards utilizing alcohol as a coping mechanism. And now I help other women navigate alcohol-free living, and it's such especially the staple in motherhood. We hear these messages that, motherhood is really hard and drinking helps. And, it does help build connection. It does quiet the noise. We do use it as a self-care reward and treat for a job well done of surviving, you know, managing these tiny little humans with little gratitude and appreciation given their age. It's very thankless being a mother. And, that's been my passion for the last decade is really just helping women uncover unhealthy coping strategies and habits and really just readjusting their focus and navigating the life on their terms without mind altering substances and just living authentically. Us as moms, like boundaries is a huge thing. Saying no so we can say yes later, the people pleasing that's ingrained in us. It's never about the drink or gambling or shopping or smoking or sugar. It's just about, escaping the really hard part of life. We are just running and gunning in this world, and we don't often think about, let's slow down. Let's modify this to-do list, Let's say no because it doesn't feel good. And there's a lot of backlash that comes with protecting our self-care and our mental health. And I just love having conversations like this that matter to let other women know that it's okay to not do everything and be everything to everyone because we're burning the candle at both ends and something will eventually give. And often it's our mental health.
Yeah, 100%. And I don't understand why this has taken this long to have so many of us finally speak out. Or maybe this is for us, our generation to finally speak out on, I actually saw a post this gal posted and it has nothing to do with any of this as I mean per se, kind of it does because it's motherhood wrapped up in basically we're the first. She was talking about I'm sure she's younger than me. She's a new mom. She's saying we're the first generation to not do the cry it out. We're the first generation to know that carrying our baby and holding our babies in our arms isn't like hi. Okay, no, will you please go turn off the stove and don't come in here again? Mom life, hashtag. um, so anyway, she was saying all these things like that, which I actually agree with. I totally felt her on that because with this, I remember going through it. I have a 13-year-old and I have a 10-year-old, and I remember going through my first child and having all the stress of comparison-itis and what you're supposed to do's and not listening to my own intuition and what I recognize to be okay for me and my children. And so with the second one, I kind of just threw everything out the door and was like, F all you, which,
Yeah.
and it was great. It was wonderful. That how we raised him was incredible. And then I didn't have another one till here I've got a 4-year old. But, and so with this last one, I felt, and I have warned social media world and my podcast listeners, I am 43 years old this month, had a newborn. I should be very secure in who I am, my fourth child. I should be secure in who I am as a mother, as a woman, whatever. And even I was being influenced by so much of the propaganda on Instagram around motherhood, right? I was like, oh, maybe I'm not doing this right. Oh, maybe I should be thinking about this more. Oh, maybe I should, all of the things. And I would like stop myself and be like, no, listen, you have what you need to figure this out. Like just tune in, quiet the outside. So I can understand at any given point in our seasons where even when we feel the strongest, right? Mentally strongest or whatever to handle whatever we're going through, that even then that there is so much feeding into our subconscious that we don't even realize. And so having a drink or over going to the gym too much. I mean,
Or eating
anything
that cookie.
or eating,
Mhm.
yes, eating the cookie or anything that is you coping, shutting your brain
Mhm.
off. You know what actually I think is a big one that people don't realize is reading all of the books that they read that they kind of like hide from their lives while they're in this like novella of Nicholas Sparks' world. I started reading one recently for this book club and I'm just like and
It's like
I'm
people wanna be teleported, right? They wanna be
it is.
teleported to
It
somewhere
truly
else.
is something that makes my brain shut off, just like TV,
Yeah.
just like the scrolling, just like anything. It makes your brain shut off. But what is that saying to you as far as your life?
Mhm. Mhm.
What are you looking to shut off? What are you wanting to hide from? What are you wanting to think, oh, that it could be better if, those kinds of things.
Right.
And I'm sorry, we just kind of went down that I went on a tantrum there, but I want to come back to something you said when you were just speaking so beautifully about what you're doing. And you said mind altering. And that is now affecting your space as a sober uh liaison, I guess you whatever you want to call yourself, because there are those new drinks that don't have alcohol in them, but they are still mind altering.
Yes. Yes, there is. Yep.
What are your thoughts around that?
There's so many different ways. I'm not a cookie cutter, clinician and sober recovery coach when it comes to, there's so many treatment modalities. And from somebody who is looking through the lens of a harm reduction model, of somebody who knows that they're drinking a little bit too much, I think it's a good step down, to drinking the real deal of you're looking for something to take the edge off. Well, what is something that's a little bit less harmful? And taking kind of those baby steps instead of those extreme cold turkey, which can medically be very unsafe, right? And mentally, it takes time to unlearn what we've been told and what we believe to be true about alcohol. And a lot of times when we take this thing away that we've put on a pedestal for so long, we lose the idea of who am I without this? Am I the only one that struggles? How come I can't get this right? How come I can't just do one? Let me go back to moderation and see if I can nail it this one last time. And so I think it's a great idea and a tool for someone who is looking to step down from that, and even people that don't, they want that euphoric feeling, but they don't want a DUI or they don't want, all the aftermath that comes along with that. So I think it's a good thing that there's more things on the market and lining store shelves. I personally stay away from a lot of it just because, I don't want the extra calories. I don't want to teleport into anybody else's world anymore. I want to feel what I feel because simply, Gina, it's information. If I'm overwhelmed, what I used to do was drink the overwhelm or drink at the person that I was upset with because I didn't have the confidence or didn't feel like it was my place to tell somebody that I was uncomfortable or didn't, set a boundary. And that just gave me permission to avoid really hard conversations. And so I like to sit in that as much as I don't like it, the distress and being uncomfortable. There's no change in progress that comes with that. So it gives me an opportunity to sit with myself and decide if I need to do something, address something, But before I ran on overwhelm and I never thought about removing this thing that, you know, took the depletion away, even though it was eroding my mental health and everything else. I'm just thinking, I have to keep up with the Joneses. I have to keep doing multiple sports for all of these kids. And I'm like, the bandwidth and the expectation that I was setting for myself, I was falling short and failing every single time. And as you know, with more kids, you have to readjust your expectation of what is doable for you in this season of life,
Right.
right? And I'm not going to be able to get that. That solution is not in the bottom of a bottle or, a mind altering new alcohol free, type of beverage that is really become a movement. So a lot of people enjoy it. I've definitely tasted them. But I'm here for it. The good, the bad, the ugly, the crazy, all of it. It's just the experience of our lives that, we only get this one, like, We've got to do it the way it feels good authentically to us and stop worrying about what other people want, say, think. So much easier said than done. I get it, but I'm a work in progress. I'm turning 45 this month and I'm just now learning, you know, who I am, who I wanna be, and that not everybody is gonna I'm not everybody's cup of tea, but at the end of the day, I can look at myself in the mirror and be proud of the person who stands there, and that's enough for me.
Honestly, I think about I a lot of how I live comes back to and anybody, if you have a way that you do this similarly, not obviously the same as how I'm gonna describe this, but if you have something that puts that in perspective for you. So for me, it's deathbed, right? I always think about on my deathbed. I think about A, who's going to be surrounding me.
Mhm.
So if those are not the people that will be surrounding me, why do I put any kind of care or thought other than just kindness and grace into those people, right? I shouldn't. Those are people who would get a boundary or I could create healthy boundaries around because they're not people that I want to have surrounding me on those in those last moments. And also they won't be. They probably won't be. That's a good way to check yourself if you need these things. But intentionally living, I love that you're saying that you want to feel it all, the good, the bad and the ugly, because that is part of our life. And if you don't have the contrast, you can't we were just explaining to our kids, if you don't have lack, you cannot appreciate abundance. You can't.
Mhm.
If all you ever know is abundance, 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 then what happens when you finally do experience lack?
Yep.
You don't know what to do with it. Like your world just came crashing down on you because of this. So, but I love that let's talk about a tool you created for women to help with this. And that is your, let's see, it's called Living Sober, Living Free Journal, right?
Yeah.
Why do you believe that journaling, I believe journaling, I mean, it is true because it is true, but why do you believe that doing techniques like this, journaling, is helpful to help people be present in their lives?
Yeah. Everything all the answers, they're all inside of us. And
Mhm.
it creates space and an opportunity to get those thoughts out. And it's like almost like those future love notes to yourself. It's like what worked, what didn't work. And you see patterns too of the seasons of life or where things were going really well and things need a little bit of support or help navigating to make it look a little bit different. When it comes to sobriety, women have this it's all or nothing mindset, right? It's completely abstain from drinking. Anything less than that is a 0, and I have failed. You know how many diets I've been on? The Whole30, the keto, you name it. It's I'm chasing this thing, right? Not the thing that really works for me, but the current fad on Instagram or whatever all the skinny influencers are telling me to do, and It's just like I never treated myself the same way if I ate that cookie or, went over my macros. But I did that with sobriety. It was like I failed. I'm a loser. I'm always going to be this way. I'm a lost cause. My kid don't deserve me. All of these negative self thoughts. I mean, no one could hurt me and shame me as much as I did all of that for everybody to myself.
Right.
And this sobriety journal creates an opportunity to really recognize that these are lessons. This is information that maybe you're being triggered because the ex has the kids, and that's why you're drinking every other weekend. Or it's payday every other Friday, and you have an excess of money, and your coworkers are wanting you to go to happy hour. There, again, is information if you document, oh, I was able to stay sober all week during the work week until this day. And so, a lot of us overcomplicate the process of journaling, and it's simply not that difficult. It can take 5 minutes a day to just be in tune with what worked, what didn't, and what are you going to do different tomorrow.
Well, tracking. It's
Mhm.
it's like having a goal. If you for whatever reason, yeah, you nailed it. That people overcomplicate journaling. I find that to be so true that when I have a challenge or something in revitalized sisterhood, that it looks like, oh, I don't have time for one more thing. It's like, okay, well, first of all, I'm not here for that. We all have time, the same amount of time. It's how you're prioritizing that time. But if you think to yourself, "Guh, I don't have time for that," you're A, overcomplicating it. It's both, actually. You're A, overcomplicating it, and B, you're prioritizing too many things that you probably need to say no to more things to, honestly.
Mhm.
But in this, you describe your sobriety as a freedom.
Mhm.
How does that look for you and in the women that you've helped in this process, in this journey? What does that freedom look like? I have a really interesting thing to add to that when you're done.
Ooh, yes, I can't wait to hear. For me, it is truly showing up as the person that you are becoming, not who the world wants you to be, not who your, book club, wine gals want you to show up as. Just free to feel it all. Freedom that you are no longer being like literally handcuffed to alcohol, and until you've experienced an addiction so deep and dark as the way that mine ended up, it's any day when you are awake to see the sun rise because you're no longer hungover. I see more people see the gifts of sobriety and recovery when they really progressed into their addiction. So it's like, oh, I want to be alcohol free just for the health of it. That is fantastic, but you haven't lost it all. Not that we want anyone to have to lose it all, but there is a lot more, like, I became more humble and grateful because I lost so much to this addiction that, yeah, little things are beautiful because I hadn't experienced it or didn't think I ever would ever again. And I refuse to take this life for granted because so many people die and don't wake up. For some reason, I did multiple times. And I'm not gonna ever take that for granted. So that is my way of just being free from the thing that stole so much of my time, took away from my children. I refuse to ever let that happen again, and I am in control, and I never have to pick up and feel that way again, and that is my choice, and that is my power, and I am free from that, and every day I have to remind myself of, I never have to feel that way ever again. There's this one thing I can't do, and this leaves endless possibilities of things that I can do.
Yeah, it's like a shackle, right? You're
Mhm.
shackled to something. So even just the imagery of that, imagine something shackling you, whatever it is. We're talking about sober living right now, but whatever it is, that it's the shackle around your ankle, whatever it is, right? Comparison, um, addiction, burnout, right?
Mhm.
Trying to prove your worth to everybody all the time, your negative self-talk. What is it that's shackling you? So freedom, I I have this questionnaire that I asked all of the women when we very first started Revitalized Womanhood, which was 3 years next month. So 3 years we started it. And so it was kind of the same thing. So just like what you're talking about with journaling, right? Just I asked them all these same questions. Well, so I asked all the women who are here now, but so many of them are the same. And I asked the same questions and got to hear the answers.
Mm.
And a lot of it was incredible, and the change they got to hear what they had said 2 years ago, and they got to see what journaling looks like, what just writing down a couple notes. It doesn't have to be 5 pages. It can be one day if you're just really feeling it, but a couple notes, a couple adjectives, a couple goals for yourself, right? And then 2 years later, what that looks like. And you know what? A couple of them we caught, they hadn't moved forward on. And it was like, well, why? That was enough for you to tell me 3 years ago, 2 years ago when I did it, that this was important for you to change. You haven't changed it. Why? Why? So it was really incredible to have this kind of tracker. It is a tracker. You cannot progress in your goals if you are not tracking them. I call it the difference between a goal with a vibe versus an actual trackable goal, right? If you're like, I'm going to lose weight and you're just going like, okay, today I'm going to eat better. Well, are you? Are you writing anything down? Are you keeping track of what you're eating? Today I'm going to go running. Tomorrow I'm going to do this. Well, are you weighing yourself? Are you measuring yourself? Like, how do you even know if you cannot track what you're doing? So for you to say freedom, I asked these women, one of the last questions is, if you accomplished everything that you just told me on this list today, all of that's done. You're living your dream life, right? You've accomplished it all. What does that look like? Why is that important? And every one of them said, it's freedom. Freedom. Freedom from what? It's freedom from the things we just talked about, from comparisonitis, from negative self-talk, from limiting beliefs, from whatever it is that has plagued you. It's freedom from that. And what that looks like is getting to meet your authentic self where she is and love her and appreciate her and say, we got this. Like, we're going to just live in a place of gratitude because this is what I've created. And I'm so super proud of that. Right. So I love that you talk about it as freedom.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
book's doing incredibly well. So that's your journal. But ladies, she has a book called All In, and it has since, let's see, I've got a little read here. It's become what's the journal? Something journal.
Yeah, so Living Sober, Living Free is the journal. Yeah, All
Yeah.
In is the
No, no, no. I'm
multi.
I'm talking about what it's become a bestseller. You're on the USA Today bestseller and the crap, Gina.
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal. I like make my little notes and then I'm like, oh, maybe that's a little too much. Yes, ladies. Okay, so your book, All In, is Wall Street Journal and USA Today bestseller. How does that look now versus when it came out? Like, what has changed in the progression? Because I like to talk about goals in terms of, I don't care if you make it to that goal, but I love the person you've become to get there.
It's interesting because I do that too. I, like, noticed that I wanted to say, like, I wanted to be a best-selling author someday before I even had written a book. I don't write, that's not what I do. I have a story, you can tell I can yak anyone's ear off. I love to, like, just connect and mingle and chat. But, I was like, I've gotta just put myself out there, and then all of a sudden the TEDx came, which is like, in the middle of the pandemic, which it's like all these, people want me to come chat about, alcohol addiction and women's wellness, and it leads and creates to opportunity. And the same way with the book, I did the sobriety journal by one of the top 5 publishing houses in the world, came to find me, just because I was putting myself out there. And this opportunity came, and I'm a multi author for entrepreneurs. This book is all about that. And my contribution is talking about being a sober entrepreneur. and how that journey was for me, and being able to share how and I navigate that and what I'm giving to the world, and spreading my message. So it's like, just do it. If you have a dream to write a book, whether it's recipes or it's a kid's book, a children's book, do it. You can publish your own on Amazon. Like, go big. If you have a heart, like something's burning in your belly to do it. And people can pick it up later. But if you have this dream and you have this idea, if you don't do it and run with it, like, you're gonna feel regretful. Like, you're gonna have regret. Second, there's an opportunity that somebody can pick up your book. Somebody that sees it, that, is a powerful human in this space that you're in, can, send you an email or send you an Instagram message, and your world changes forever. But we're so afraid of rejection, and we have this fear that we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we don't have a big enough following, and it holds us back. And what that is just complete self-sabotage.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
I actually am gonna jump on what you're saying, because you took that down a different path than what I was expecting. I mean, I don't know what I was expecting, but you took it down a really lovely path that I kind of was thinking in my head before we started, where I wanted to start with this, but we kind of got into it, but was saying yes. The power of saying yes. And that is actually how we met. We met because I said yes to showing up to an event out of the blue randomly. I just started Revitalized Womanhood. My business manager at the time invited a bunch of random women to come to dinner with us. And you said yes. And we all showed up. We got to know each other better. And we've been friends since. And that's just one strand of saying yes and what that looks like. But what you're talking about is you said yes to listening to telling your story. You said yes, whoever picks up your book said yes to taking that first step into sober living and what that looks like. So what do you have to say? You just said it really, I mean, amazingly well about if you have something burning in your heart to do that way. But what do you say when women are like, I don't know that I need to reevaluate my drinking? What do you say to women like that?
If people who don't have a drinking problem don't wonder if they have a drinking problem.
Hmm.
I mean, it's that simple. I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves, we know if we do or not. And if you really don't know, then do dry July, do
Right.
dry January, and set some parameters around your relationship with alcohol and alcohol consumption, and see how that feels. See if that's hard for you. See if you make it through. And that, again, is going to give you information about your relationship with alcohol. And people often wait for their lives to become so unmanageable that we have this idea in our culture where you're either a normie, so you're a person who can drink responsibly, take it or leave it. I was that high functioning, top shelf drinker for years. I could drink once a month and could take it or leave it. And, so we have that vision of who that person is. And then we have the spectrum of an alcoholic. And we all have this stereotypical idea of what an alcoholic looks like: underneath a bridge, brown paper bag, houseless, families estranged, all the things. And, people don't look at it as the way the medical model describes, which is a spectrum of alcohol use disorder: mild, moderate, and severe. This progression can take years, months, decades to go through. I didn't just go from take it or leave it to all of a sudden drinking pretty much every day, and drinking at my problems and my using this as a primary coping tool. That, alcohol is related to 7 different types of cancer. It does bloat us. It does, all these things. And we need to add that into the conversation. It's not just, let's just drink because our life sucks or our kids are really, really hard. Right.
Yeah.
And so that's where a lot of women are coming from. It's just like, oh yeah, it's like stopping me from my fat loss goals. I'm going through menopause and it's affecting my mental health. Like,
Yeah.
great. You don't just have to wait for a DUI and to lose your job before you make a change. Let's be preventative and not proactive. Because a lot of times when you can stop, you don't have a reason to. And then when you're chemically dependent, you need to stop, but you can't on your own. And we need to have conversations that you're not a special unicorn or an exception to the rule, that susceptible to this and nobody has immunity. I don't wake up thinking about eating brownies. I've never struggled with an eating disorder. I don't know what it's like, and we all have a thing, right? Like
Yeah.
you said earlier. And what makes it hard for people to understand, like, why can't you just have one? Why can't you have one brownie? I don't get it. I've never been there, but I respect and honor the fact that I want to bring something to the barbecue that you can eat and that does bring joy and nutrition to your life. And I approach all of my friendships with that. I err on the side of caution of, it doesn't matter why Michelle doesn't drink. Are you going to treat her any different? It doesn't
Right.
matter if you're on a diet or you're allergic to peanuts. I'm going to honor your choice to show up and ask for what you want without judgment or shame. And I feel that more people are opening up that conversation, and bars and restaurants and even Target, like there's all these NA options. And, they are doing a better job of, having them on menus and having a healthier spin on them, because a lot of them are loaded with sugar. And I get these comments on Instagram. Well, pina coladas have a lot of calories. Yeah, they do, but I was just drinking the real one for the alcohol. Like, it's
Yeah.
like, let me enjoy something that tastes good that I drink twice a year on vacation, you know?
And it
Um,
really does it does add to so, like my kids, we go to Costa Rica, we go to this specific hot spring, and
Mhm.
they relate that memory to getting a pina colada at the bar in the
Yeah.
middle of the hot springs. Like, theirs doesn't have
Mhm.
alcohol in it, but that's a fun memory that they have, or in Mexico, getting the pina colada in the pineapple or whatever it is. It's just a fun memory. I
Mhm.
was gonna say that this is since we've had this conversation because I had never even heard of it when you and I met, and now actually I have since seen it referred to on a few different shows that people say, "Well, we're sober." Or, someone shows up with beer and they say, "Oh, we're sober. Can you go put that back in your car?" That it's not just it's starting to be a common thing. And just
Mhm.
like where we started this conversation today is that's incredible. It's an incredible thing to be able to say, I am in this season, I'm in this space, this is Gina, this is who I am, and have other people respect it without coming at me like and that leads me to I wanted to ask you about how you are able to hold space for women or for anybody really for that matter, because yours isn't necessarily just women, that because offended people will always be offended, right?
Mhm.
And most of the time, uh, uh, 99% of the time, I will say my thing is that's a you problem.
Mhm.
If someone comes at me with something that they have a problem with, it's most of the time it's like that's a you problem. I'm apparently I just triggered something in you, twisted a nerve, held a mirror in front of your face that now has you coming at me in this way. So let's turn that mirror back to you. How do you handle those kinds of things? Because I can imagine in a sober space, that's a lot of people that have
Mhm.
things to say, have opinions about why what you're doing is, I'm not going to say wrong, but I'm sure they say it that way.
Mhm. Yep. I bless and release. I can't hold on to that. Like you said, it's their own inner dialogue. And, if people are coming at me and saying, "Hey, I noticed you didn't drink," or, I've had people that will get the same order, at happy hour. Oh, I'll have one of what she had, because I'm like leading in the way that it's silent. This person tells me later that they're trying not to drink, and I created an opportunity for them to piggyback on the same order, because they were like almost like paralyzed with fear of like, what do I say? What do I do? And we get so caught up into what other people think. And it's like, I used to carry around like and pretend to drink just to avoid the conversations. And it's like, why am I doing that? Why are we pretending to drink even though we're not? just because we don't want to be scapegoated or ghosted or made fun of, or, that adult peer pressure and bullying. And so it's like, I'm not better than you because I don't drink. It's you do you. I can't do it like a normal person. You can. No judgment, right? But I am also like, I'm very, very pro sobriety, but I am not anti drinking. We can coexist in motherhood and in the world as a whole. But, when I say no and I create a boundary, I expect it to be respected,
Mhm.
right? I'm not going to stick a brownie down your throat and ask you why you can't eat it. It's not my business.
Yeah.
And so I create an opportunity to share with people if they ask. Like like I said, I heard that you weren't drinking, and how did you do it, or why aren't you doing it? But I think people like want to know so that it appeases them and puts their mind at ease. Oh, you're an alcoholic. Okay, you get a free pass. You're drunk. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, but if you're not doing it, why can't you just have one? Why can't you just mind your own business, and not
Yeah.
worry about what's in my glass? But, I think again, the sober movement and alcohol free movement is really coming in with that spectrum, right? There's a middle ground of normie and alcoholic, of just, my mom died. So I'm being more mindful of my mental health. And this is affecting that fat loss journey. Whatever it is, there's more conversations than just, oh, unless it's a religious reason, I'm pregnant or you're an alcoholic, you get those passes. And there's
Right.
very much more conversation around the fact of white people are just tapping out for just, oh, maybe even just a little while. And so I think that's really helping the conversation and just having alternatives. When we go to these book clubs or these 2-year-old birthday parties, like, let's, not everybody still drink, but just have something there to show a little respect for people who are choosing not to just have alcohol,
Right.
even if it's just bottled water. Like, you don't have to go out of your way. We shouldn't be an inconvenience, but I think people in this day and age are very mindful of allergies and restrictions when it comes to food.
Right.
There's more acceptance and information around people being vegans, and you honoring those
Right.
allergies or those preferences. And it shouldn't be any different with what you're ingesting. But
Right.
again, it's normalizing that there's something different than there's been before. And it takes time. And the way that we do that is by having conversations like this, or somebody saying, do you have anything that's non alcoholic? Or which I always do is bring my own, because I
Right.
can't rely on other people. It's not their job to make Michelle happy and to cater to her.
Right.
It's a respect thing. And people that know somebody who's been impacted or know somebody who's refraining, they often show up for that person and have alternatives. But this is definitely helping the conversation of just being more mindful around people who are just choosing not to drink.
It's funny because, in Utah, that's a normal thing. I mean,
Yes.
this is not a new thing. In the LDS culture, I mean, it's sober, right? Nobody's
Mhm.
drinking. So for us and how we're raised, it's not an uncommon thing. It's actually more of an uncommon thing when we go somewhere else and say, I'm not drinking. I'm sure I've told you this story, but the first time we met, Hector, he's a Mexican that owned the wood mill with us. We bought into a wood mill when we were like younger, when we first started our company, but it was down in Tijuana, and we met him for dinner in San Diego. And actually, it was really funny because my husband had said, nobody order drinks with dinner. We don't want to look ghetto. So to us, being raised in a culture that does not drink, right? Ordering a drink with dinner looks like, I shouldn't say ghetto. He did say it that way, but it's you know what I mean? Looks weird, right? Whatever. So later on, after we had owned this wood mill with Hector for a while, he had said to Rick, I actually wasn't going to go into business with you. And Rick said, well, why not? And he said, because I thought anyone who didn't order a drink with dinner was weird, couldn't be a normal person. And
Mm.
so I thought it was so interesting. And it's really a funny story because that was us 2020s versus now. But it's interesting as how culture for us has been that way, but for the rest of the world, it's just now coming on. So, like you said, to be able to say it's a religious thing, you get a pass. But
Right.
why not soda? I don't
Right.
drink soda. Why does nobody bat an eye at that? Like, I don't drink coffee. Why does nobody
Yeah.
bat it? I mean, I drink coffee, like, give me an IV. But I'm saying these are things that it's like, why is there such a thing around alcohol? And I think it has a lot to do with mirroring. Like I said, it's like what you're mirroring to me is bringing up things that I'm insecure about, whether it is I'm hiding from my life, I have to numb something, or I actually am nervous that I do have a drinking problem and I don't want you to reflect that at me. So I do think that there is a lot of that wrapped up in alcohol because, like you said, we're used to the extremes,
Mhm.
either nothing or you're living under a overpass.
Mhm.
So I'm really glad that there's people like you out there. And I love, love, love. Follow Michelle because she always posts these really fun drinks, these really fun mocktails to make. And they're always Instagrammable, adorable, and perfect for the occasion that you're posting for. So I really appreciate that. What do you want to leave my listeners with as far as not even necessarily sober living, but as far as living authentically, like we were talking about, because I loved you were speaking about it so beautifully, living authentically and feeling it, right? The good, the bad, the ugly.
Yeah. I think it comes with age too, wisdom, right? It's like if we were to do this all over again, like, that's one thing that we would do is let go of, what people think and create boundaries and take better care of ourselves. And I think all that happens on the other side of that thing that you are afraid to let go of, and it's like the freedom and the floodgates just open when you face and address the thing that's holding you back. And you guys all know what that is that's holding you back. And just step into that. Somebody once told me that, like, setting boundaries, because I was just like a no, no, we just didn't do that. That's not how I was raised. It was very much people pleasing. Yes, ma'am, you're going to do it. Even if I'm very resentful or it stretches me too thin, you show up and put a smile on your face, let alone I was dying inside and my mental health was being affected. But it's like, the only people who don't benefit from, or the only people who don't like your boundaries are those who benefit from you not having any. And
Right.
I think that there's so much truth to that is that people will cheer for you and encourage you to set a boundary as long as it's not on them, right? As long as you still do what they need to do. And it's like, give yourself a permission slip to just be kinder to yourself. Do what brings you joy. And it's okay if you say no a little bit more often than you have before, because it's going to be a yes later. It's going to be a yes for your mental health. You might not have to eat that extra piece of cake tonight to suppress these emotions of overwhelm. Just like whatever's holding you back, you know what it is, and just lean into it and find that community. And I know that you've created your beautiful community. It's like, I hope that people are reaping the benefits of that because this navigating womanhood, menopause, motherhood, it's really lonely. And the
Yeah.
things that I found myself Googling in the middle of the night, thinking I'm the only one, I didn't create space or find community know that I'm not alone and other people are navigating this and they have hacks and tips and tricks and we can cry together and we can send memes laughing about things together. And we're not meant to do this alone. That's what I would share with them.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Community is obviously a big part of my platform, and I totally
Yeah.
wholeheartedly agree that we're not supposed to do this alone, and that's when we are at our worst is when we isolate and we're in this dark space, and that is so interesting that that's where the majority of people go when there is any kind of a problem. They
Yep.
they go to that isolated place. They go to that dark place, and that sometimes ends up in the bottom of the bottle on topic, if you will. But
Right.
yeah, if you're in a community that can help support you, then that's not going to be how it ends up. So thank you so much, friend. It's so good to see you. You look beautiful. You are such a joy to have and such a fun person to have conversation with. Keep in touch, and thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Thank you.